You know that feeling. When something pulls at your attention so completely that the rest of the world fades. And for a moment, you are not sure where your thoughts end and the world begins tonight. We are going somewhere safe with that feeling. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, perhaps already settled into the dark, your eyes heavy, the room quiet, you are already doing it. You are already being conscious. Right now, in this very moment, awareness is present. It arrived before you noticed it. Tonight, we will trace the architecture of that awareness. 100 gentle facts about consciousness, unfolding from its first flicker at waking to the soft dissolution of sleep. This channel exists to help tired minds find rest through the quiet wonder of science. If you are here because you needed somewhere peaceful to land tonight, you found it. A gentle like or subscribe helps one more restless mind discover this space. That small act carries someone else here too, on a night they really need it. One sleepy soul at a time. Let yourself settle completely now. Allow your jaw to soften, your shoulders to drop, your breath to deepen on its own. You do not need to hold on to any of this. Consciousness does not ask permission to arrive. And tonight, it will not ask permission to gently fade. Let that be enough. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You are resting at the edge where thought becomes silence. Let your mind dissolve at that border. And now we begin. Consciousness is the simplest thing in the world, and the hardest to explain. You know what it is the moment someone asks, because you are experiencing it right now. That quiet, private sense of being here, of noticing, of existing from the inside. It is so immediate, so obvious, that for most of history, we barely thought to question it. Philosophers called it the first certainty, the experience of thinking, of being aware, could not be denied, even when everything else was in doubt. And yet, despite its intimacy, despite the fact that you have lived inside it every hour of every day, consciousness remains one of the most deeply unresolved mysteries in all of science. This is the mystery you live inside every single day. In the early 1990s, scientists began treating consciousness as something that could actually be studied, not just philosophized about. The laboratory doors opened, carefully, to the most interior thing in existence. Researchers proposed that awareness must have a basis in measurable brain activity, and that this basis could, in principle, be found. That search continues today, in laboratories across the world. It has already changed how we understand sleep, attention, memory, and emotion. And the search it began is still, quietly, about you, about what it means to be aware, right now, in this room, in this moment, right now. As you rest, your brain is generating something scientists call a neural correlate of consciousness. This is a specific pattern of brain activity that corresponds to a conscious experience. When you see a color, a certain group of neurons fires together. When you hear a sound, another pattern activates. When you feel the weight of your blanket on your body right now, a corresponding signature appears in your brain. The pattern and the experience happen together every time. reliably. But science has not yet determined which one causes the other, or whether something deeper causes both. Every conversation you had today, every face you recognized, every moment of noticing, that was this process at work, faithfully, without announcement. Your conscious experience in this moment is actually a reconstruction. The world you perceive, this room, these sounds, the weight of your body, is not a direct read of reality. It is a model. Your brain receives signals from your senses, processes them, and builds a version of the world that is slightly delayed, filled in, and edited. Research confirms that what you consciously experience lags behind the real world by roughly 80 to 100 milliseconds. Your brain has already processed the raw information, and then it presents you with a finished, cleaned-up version. What you call the present moment is, technically, a very recent past. This has been happening all day. Every moment of your waking life, the world you experienced was already a breath behind the world itself. And you never once noticed the gap. There is a boundary in the brain that separates conscious from unconscious processing. And it is not a wall. It is more like a threshold. Certain information reaches your brain and stays unconscious, processed, used, influencing your behavior, without ever crossing into awareness. Other information crosses the threshold and becomes something you notice. What determines which signals cross? Research suggests it involves a kind of amplification. When a signal is strong enough, or relevant enough, a wave of coordinated activity spreads across the brain. This spreading is what brings something into consciousness. Most of what your brain processed today never crossed that threshold. The sounds you tuned out, the sensations you moved past, the peripheral movements your body responded to without your awareness. All of it handled. None of it requiring you to be present for it. The brain has roughly 86 billion neurons, and consciousness appears to involve a much smaller, specific set of them. For decades, scientists believed awareness must involve the entire brain working together. More recent research has refined this picture. Certain regions seem especially involved in generating conscious experience, particularly areas toward the back of the brain, in the visual cortex and surrounding regions. The front of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which handles planning and decision-making, may play more of a reflecting role than a generating one. Some researchers now propose that the back of the brain generates the raw experience, while the front evaluates and reflects on it. You experience this division every time you act before you think. The experience arrives first. The evaluation follows. You are conscious only of a tiny fraction of what your senses send your way. Your eyes alone transmit roughly 10 million bits of information per second to your brain. Your ears, skin, and other senses add millions more. And yet, at any given moment, your conscious awareness holds only a sliver of this, perhaps 40 to 50 bits. The rest is handled automatically, filtered, compressed, and acted upon without your awareness ever being involved. This is not a flaw. It is a remarkable efficiency. If you were conscious of everything arriving right now, you would be overwhelmed in an instant. The unconscious mind is not hidden from you. It is working for you, endlessly, without complaint. Right now, your body is doing thousands of things you are completely unaware of, and they are all going perfectly. Consciousness appears to have at least two distinct dimensions, and scientists have learned to measure both. The first is often called arousal. How awake you are, how alert. A person can be highly aroused, but not fully conscious, as in certain states of delirium. A person can also be deeply conscious in some sense, while barely aroused, as in deep meditation. The second dimension is called content, what you are actually aware of in any given moment. The texture of the ceiling, the sound of your breathing, the vague feeling of a half-remembered thought from this afternoon. Arousal is like the brightness of a screen. Content is like what is displayed on it. Right now, as you settle towards sleep, your arousal is beginning its gentle descent. The screen is dimming, and that is exactly right. Some of the most revealing research into consciousness comes not from studying it directly, but from studying what happens when it briefly disappears. During certain phases of sleep, during anesthesia, and in some neurological conditions, consciousness fades, sometimes completely. Researchers study these transitions carefully because they reveal the conditions necessary for awareness to exist. One consistent finding: consciousness seems to depend on a certain kind of complex, coordinated activity across different regions of the brain. When that coordination breaks down, when brain regions stop talking to each other in a certain way, experience fades. This is why anesthesia works. It does not silence the brain. It disrupts the conversation between brain regions. And without that conversation, the experience disappears. What remains is the body, working on without a witness. So what is consciousness? In its simplest form. At this point in our journey, one answer is beginning to emerge. Consciousness is not a thing located in a single place. It is a process, a continuous, self-refreshing pattern of activity that integrates information, generates an experience, and allows that experience to be used. It is less like a light bulb that is either on or off, and more like a flame, sustained by constant input, capable of flickering, of varying in brightness, of changing in quality while remaining itself. And like a flame, it can be fed or gently allowed to dim. This is what happened to you today. A full day of the flame burning. And tonight, we are gently, safely, allowing it to settle lower. Consciousness in daily life is not a single, steady state. It fluctuates constantly. Even when you think you are paying full attention. Research on mind wandering shows that the mind drifts away from its intended focus for anywhere from 15 to 50% of waking hours. These are not failures. They are features. Periods when the brain shifts into a different mode of processing, integrating memories, planning ahead, or simply resting between bursts of focused attention. You may have noticed this today. A moment when your eyes were on something but your mind had gone somewhere else entirely. A meeting you were present for, but not quite in. A sentence you read twice because the first time your thoughts were already elsewhere. That drifting is consciousness doing something important. The unfocused mind is not an empty mind. There is a specific brain network that activates when your mind wanders, and scientists have given it a name. It is called the default mode network. For a long time, it was considered a kind of background hum, the brain idling between tasks. But research has revealed it to be anything but idle. The default mode network is active during self-reflection, during imagining the future, during empathy with others, and during the kind of loose, associative thinking that often produces creative insights. It is the network that quietly asks, "Who am I? What do I want? What does this mean?" Some researchers propose it also plays a role in the sense of a continuous self, the narrative thread that connects your morning to your afternoon to this quiet moment now. The story of you is written in this network every day, without your instruction. Your sense of self, the feeling of being a continuous, unified person, is one of the most remarkable products of consciousness, and research suggests it is partially constructed. Brain imaging has found that the sense of self is not located in a single spot. It is built from many sources: memory, bodily sensation, emotional state, narrative, and social reflection, assembled moment by moment into something that feels singular and continuous. When any of these inputs is disrupted, in certain neurological conditions, in severe sleep deprivation, in some dissociative states, the sense of self can feel fragmented, distant, or temporarily absent. The person you feel yourself to be right now is real. It is also assembled. And tonight, parts of that assembly will quietly power down. And that will be completely safe. It happens every night. You always return. Memory and consciousness are deeply intertwined. But they are not the same thing. You can be fully conscious without remembering what you experienced. This occurs in anterograde amnesia, where patients may have rich, vivid conscious experience in the present moment, noticing, feeling, responding, but form no lasting memory of it. Moments later, the experience is gone. This tells us something important. Consciousness is about what is happening now, not about what will be retained. The experience itself is complete, regardless of whether it is stored. Tonight, you may not remember every word of this. That does not make the listening any less real. What you feel in this moment, the ease, the quiet, the permission to rest, is fully present. Memory is optional. This moment is not. There is a moment, familiar to anyone who has ever reached for a glass of water without deciding to, or found themselves already standing in a room without remembering walking there. When the body acts before the mind catches up. Science has spent decades quietly studying this gap between action and awareness. Research has found that measurable brain activity related to a voluntary movement can begin several hundred milliseconds before a person consciously experiences the decision to move. The brain appears to be preparing the action before awareness arrives. Some researchers interpret this as evidence that conscious decisions are, in part, confirmations of something already in motion. The mind as editor, approving or gently redirecting, rather than always initiating. You experience this every day. The body moves through familiar moments with a quiet authority that consciousness simply trusts. Some researchers have proposed that conscious awareness may not flow continuously, but rather moves in rhythmic pulses, tied to the brain's natural oscillation cycles. Studies exploring theta waves, those slow oscillations between 4 and 8 cycles per second, have found intriguing correlations with how attention shifts and resets. There are also hints, in certain experimental paradigms, that brief gaps exist between sampling moments, edited together into what feels seamless. It remains an active area of inquiry rather than settled science. But the possibility holds a quiet poetry. What you experience as the continuous, flowing awareness of this moment, this steady sense of being present, may be a series of rapidly assembled fragments, woven so seamlessly that no gap is ever perceptible. Like frames of film, running fast enough to become motion, your awareness, a beautiful and unbroken story, told in moments too small to feel. Every day, you lose consciousness and return to it. And most people give this almost no thought. Sleep is the most common altered state of consciousness a human being experiences. Every night, without exception, the continuous narrative of waking life is interrupted. Memories stop forming in the usual way. The sense of self becomes fluid. Time ceases to feel linear. And yet, every morning, you return, generally feeling like the same person who left. How certain stable patterns persist across the gap. Emotional tone, core values, long-term memory, the felt sense of being someone. These provide continuity even when conscious experience is absent. You are more than your moment-to-moment awareness. Something deeper persists. Something continues while the light is out. It has done so every night of your life without failing once. Consciousness is not uniquely human, but the question of where it exists in the animal kingdom is one science is only beginning to answer carefully. A statement signed in 2012 by a group of prominent neuroscientists, known as the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, acknowledged that many non-human animals possess the neurological substrates for conscious experience. This includes mammals, birds, and some invertebrates. More recent research has expanded this conversation further. Studies of fish pain responses, bee decision-making, and crow problem-solving have all raised new questions about where the boundaries of experience lie. The universe may be far more full of interior life than we once assumed. You are part of a long, branching lineage of creatures who have known, in some form, what it is to be aware. That is a very old thing to be. Language and consciousness are intimately connected, but they are not the same thing. It was long assumed that complex conscious thought required language. Research has challenged this. People who lose the ability to produce or understand language due to brain injury can still demonstrate rich problem-solving, emotional response, and clearly purposeful behavior, suggesting that experience continues without verbal narration. Infants, before language develops, are clearly conscious, responsive, emotional, aware. Animals without language process the world with apparent richness. What language adds to consciousness is the ability to report on it, to share it, to place it in narrative time. Language is a tool the conscious mind uses, not the foundation on which consciousness rests. Right now, these words are reaching your awareness, but the awareness was already there, waiting, long before the first word arrived. Consciousness and attention are often confused, but they are not identical. Attention is the process of selecting what to bring into focus. Consciousness is the experience of whatever is in focus, and sometimes of things that were never focused on at all. Research has shown that certain stimuli can enter conscious awareness without ever being attended to. A sudden sound, a change at the edge of vision, an emotion rising without a clear thought attached to it. This means consciousness is broader than the spotlight of attention. It includes the room around the spotlight. Dim, ambient, but present. As you settle now, you may notice things at the edge of your awareness. Sounds you were not listening for. The rhythm of your own breathing. The particular quality of the quiet in this room. Consciousness is already so much wider than what you focus on. In recent years, a theory of consciousness called integrated information theory has attracted significant scientific attention and significant debate, proposed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi. It suggests that consciousness corresponds to a measurable property, the amount of integrated information a system processes, referred to as phi, elegantly mathematical. It implies that consciousness exists on a spectrum across all systems. In recent years, large-scale scientific tests comparing this theory against other frameworks have produced mixed results. The debate continues. With characteristic patience, researchers on multiple sides have sharpened their questions, refined their methods, and acknowledged how much remains unresolved. What all sides agree on is this: consciousness is real. It varies in quality and depth, and it is still teaching us what to look for. The questions it raises are among the most honest ones science has ever asked. A competing framework, called Global Workspace Theory, offers a different picture. Proposed by cognitive scientist Bernard Baars and developed extensively since. The Global Workspace Theory suggests that consciousness arises when information is broadcast widely across the brain, made available to many different processing systems simultaneously. Imagine a large stage in a dark theater. Most processing happens backstage, in specialized systems that never enter awareness. But when information reaches the stage, when it is broadcast across the global workspace, it becomes conscious. Other parts of the brain can use it, respond to it, reflect on it. On this view, consciousness is fundamentally a communication system. It is what allows different parts of the brain to share information and coordinate a response. You use this system all day. Every decision, every conversation, every moment of noticing. That was the stage, lit and working. Tonight, the stage is quieting, the broadcast is softening, and the audience is beginning to rest. One of the most common experiences of altered consciousness in daily life is not sleep, meditation, or illness. It is flow. Flow is a state characterized by deep absorption, effortless action, and a loss of self-consciousness. Athletes, musicians, surgeons, and writers often describe it. You may have felt it yourself. A moment when time disappeared. when effort became invisible, when you and the task were simply the same thing. Brain imaging studies of flow states show reduced activity in regions associated with self-monitoring and heightened efficiency in the networks relevant to the task. Consciousness becomes transparent in flow. The self gets out of the way. Action and awareness merge. That is why it feels so effortless. The part of you that watches has stepped aside, and what remains simply moves. The experience of time, one of the most constant features of conscious life, is far more variable than we typically realize. Studies in time perception show that the brain actively constructs the feeling of duration. When attention is fully absorbed, time seems to compress. When watching for something, it seems to expand. During fear or intense stress, subjective time can slow dramatically. You experienced versions of this today. A long meeting that felt even longer. A conversation that ended too soon. An hour of focused work that disappeared. As you settle towards sleep tonight, you may notice time beginning to blur at the edges. Minutes no longer feel distinct. The gap between thoughts widens. This is not confusion. It is a sign that consciousness is beginning its nightly softening. The brain's internal clock is winding down. Time is becoming less important. You do not need to track it tonight. Halfway through our first chapter, here is where we stand. Consciousness is not a fixed light that is either on or off. It is a process, complex, layered, rhythmic, alive, that integrates information into experience and makes that experience available to the whole of who you are. It fluctuates across the day, dims at night, and returns each morning carrying the thread of you with it. It is connected to memory, to attention, to emotion, to the body. But it is not any one of these things. It is the space in which all of these things appear, and it has been present for every moment of your day, every mundane, every difficult, every quiet moment, faithful and unhurried. Tonight, that space is beginning its natural, entirely safe journey toward quiet. Rest in that space. You belong there. Let's pause here for a moment. Right now, as you breathe out slowly, your brain is doing something remarkable. It is sorting through today, deciding quietly which moments matter, which can soften, which can be released. You don't need to help it. You never did. Trillions of quiet processes happening without your direction. Your heart beating, your cells restoring, your memories finding their places. You are a complete, self-tending system. And right now, the most important thing you can do is nothing. Simply be here. Simply breathe. Now we continue. Consciousness does not live only in the brain. For decades, the dominant view was that conscious experience was generated entirely within the skull, and the body was simply its instrument. More recent research has significantly complicated this picture. The field of embodied cognition has demonstrated that the body actively shapes what and how we experience. Your posture affects your emotional state. The rhythm of your gut influences your mood. Physical sensation shapes what you notice and what you remember. Consciousness, it appears, is a whole-body event. You felt this today, in the way a tense afternoon sat in your shoulders, in the way a deep breath shifted something in your chest. The mind and body were never separate. They have been in conversation every moment. The heart and consciousness are more connected than anatomy textbooks traditionally suggested. Research into cardiac coherence, the relationship between heart rate variability and brain states, has found that when the heart enters a smooth, coherent rhythm, the brain tends to follow into a calmer, more integrated mode of processing. This connection runs through the vagus nerve, one of the longest nerves in the body, which carries information directly from the heart and gut to the brain. Practices that slow the heart, slow breathing, gentle movement, calm environments, have measurable effects on the quality of conscious experience. Your heart is already slowing now. The rhythm is becoming quieter, more even, and your brain is listening, as it always does. Consciousness has a distinct character in the morning and a different one at night. And this is not merely psychological. Research on circadian biology has shown that cognitive functions, emotional regulation, attention, and even the way different brain regions communicate all shift over the course of a day, governed by the internal biological clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a cluster of roughly 20,000 neurons in the hypothalamus. In the evening, this clock begins releasing signals that shift brain chemistry towards sleep. Alertness systems that were active during the day begin to quiet. The brain becomes more ready to let sensory input fall away. Your consciousness is not the same in this moment as it was this morning. It is already softer, already leaning toward rest. Biology is nudging you in the right direction, and has been for hours. One of the most consistent features of evening consciousness is a shift in emotional processing. As the brain transitions towards sleep readiness, the emotional centers become more sensitive in states of sleep deprivation, and more regulated when rest is near and the body is calm. The emotional tone of late evening awareness often has a different quality than daytime awareness. Thoughts can feel larger, more persistent, more tinged with feeling. Old concerns may resurface. Boundaries between feelings and thoughts can blur. This is not pathology. It is simply what consciousness does as the filtering systems relax, as the careful editing of the day loosens, and what was held in the background is briefly more present. Tonight, allow those thoughts their natural softening. They do not need to be resolved. They are already beginning to dissolve on their own. Breathing and consciousness are linked in a direction that science has confirmed runs both ways. Everyone knows that emotional states change breathing. Anxiety quickens it. Calm slows it. But research has demonstrated that deliberately changing your breathing also alters conscious experience and brain state. Slow, extended exhalations activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest and recovery. This shifts the brain towards slower wave activity, reduces sensory alertness, and gently quiets the networks associated with self-monitoring. Your breath is one of the few automatic body processes you can also consciously influence. And right now, simply by breathing more slowly, by letting each exhale be a little longer than the inhale, you are changing the texture of your own awareness from the inside. The transition from wakefulness into sleep is not a single moment. It is a process that unfolds across several distinct stages. As drowsiness deepens, the brain shifts from beta waves, fast, alert oscillations, through alpha waves, which appear when the eyes are closed and the mind is quiet, toward theta waves, which begin to dominate as sleep approaches. During this transition, something gentle happens. Involuntary images, sounds, or sensations can arise, brief and vivid, called hypnagogic hallucinations. A flash of color, a voice that seemed real for a moment, the sensation of stepping off a curb and catching yourself. These are not dreams. They are the brain releasing its grip on constructed reality, letting the edges soften before sleep fully arrives. They are a signal that you are already on your way. Consciousness does not switch off completely at sleep onset. It undergoes a transformation. Research using brainwave recordings has shown that even in light sleep, the brain continues to process external information. Spoken names can register. Meaningful sounds trigger stronger responses than random ones. What changes is not processing itself, but the capacity to form coherent, reportable experience. The building of the conscious moment, that sense of unified awareness, becomes suspended. Information continues to arrive. The brain continues to respond, but the experience of receiving it becomes quiet, then absent. You are not disappearing when you fall asleep. You are becoming something different, something that still processes, still breathes, still heals, simply without the narration. The story pauses. The body does not. Dreams represent perhaps the most extraordinary daily encounter with consciousness. Because in dreams, awareness is present, but the usual grounding of reality is suspended. Dreaming occurs primarily during rapid eye movement sleep, which the brain enters approximately every 90 minutes across the night. During REM, certain brain regions associated with visual experience, emotion, and autobiographical memory become highly active, while those associated with logical reasoning and self-monitoring become quieter. The result is a state where consciousness is vivid and present, but unconstrained by physical input or rational evaluation. Events are accepted as real. Impossible things occur without question. Dreaming may be consciousness exploring its own architecture, the shapes awareness can take when freed from the requirement of accuracy. Every night, the mind becomes its own world. The question of whether you are conscious during dreamless sleep has occupied philosophers and neuroscientists for a very long time. For most of history, dreamless sleep was considered a blank, an absence. More recent research has complicated this. Reports from people awakened during slow-wave deep sleep sometimes include fragmented experiences, vague feelings, simpler sensations, a quality of presence without narrative. Not dreams. Exactly, but not nothing. Some researchers have proposed that awareness continues in a very minimal, undifferentiated form throughout sleep. Not the awareness of something specific, but awareness itself, without content. A quiet, contentless knowing, the flame very low, but not extinguished. Whether this is true remains open, but something in the question feels familiar. The way dreamless nights still feel like yours when morning comes. Sleep does things for the mind that waking awareness cannot do for itself. During sleep, the brain undergoes a form of cellular housekeeping that has no waking equivalent. The glymphatic system, a network of channels that uses cerebrospinal fluid to flush waste products from brain tissue, becomes significantly more active during sleep. Among the compounds cleared is beta amyloid, a protein associated with cognitive decline when it accumulates over time. Research has established that even a single night of disrupted sleep measurably increases beta amyloid levels in the brain. Sleep is not rest in the passive sense. It is active biological maintenance. The brain cleaning itself, restoring itself, preparing the very substrate of consciousness for the next day of experience. Awareness requires a clean house, and sleep is when the cleaning happens. Emotion and consciousness interact in ways that shape almost every experience of the waking day. Emotions are not simply reactions. They are a core part of how consciousness filters and organizes what you perceive. Research has established that the brain is constantly making predictions about what will happen next, and emotions are part of those predictions. What you feel colors what you see, hear, and remember. Two people can have the same experience and feel something completely different, because their emotional history shapes the predictions their brains bring to the moment. This means that your emotional state right now, the quiet, the settling, the gentle permission to rest, is not just a feeling. It is shaping what you experience. What feels true, what feels safe. Feeling calm makes the world feel calmer. This is not an illusion. It is how the conscious brain works. Pain and consciousness share an intimate and complex relationship. Pain is not simply a signal traveling from the body to the brain. It is, fundamentally, a conscious experience, one that can be profoundly shaped by attention, belief, emotional state, and context. Research has shown that the same sensation can produce very different levels of pain depending on what the person believes is happening, what their emotional state is, and how much attention they direct toward it. Conversely, techniques that shift attention, mindfulness, gentle narration, absorbing story, have been shown to reduce the experience of discomfort measurably, without any change to the underlying physical cause. This is one reason why calm, absorbing content can sometimes feel physically relieving. The mind, occupied gently elsewhere, holds its aches a little more lightly. Consciousness has a social dimension that is often overlooked. Research in social neuroscience has established that human awareness is shaped, in part, by awareness of other people. The brain maintains representations of what others are thinking, feeling, and intending. This capacity operates largely beneath conscious awareness, but its effects reach consciousness constantly. We feel the emotional tone of a room before we understand it. We sense something in a voice before we process the words. We feel less alone when we know someone else is near, right now, across the world. Others are listening to these same words in their own darkened rooms. You are not alone in this quiet. That knowledge, held gently, is a kind of company, a room of people, each in their own darkness, breathing slowly together. mindfulness. The practice of deliberately observing conscious experience without judgment has measurable effects on the brain itself. Research involving long-term meditators has found structural differences in regions associated with attention regulation, awareness of internal body states, and emotional processing. These differences appear to develop through the sustained practice of conscious observation. More relevant to your evening, even brief periods of quiet, non-judgmental attention to breath or sensation have been shown to reduce the activity of the self-referential mind and ease the transition towards sleep. You do not need to be a meditator to benefit from this. The simple act of noticing, without trying to change anything, without evaluating what you find, is already a form of practice. You are practicing it right now. Here is where we are, at the midpoint of our evidence. Consciousness, in daily life, is not a background constant. It is an active, fluctuating, embodied process, shaped by breath, by emotion, by time of day, by the presence of others, by the state of the body, and by the sheer biochemical reality of the brain. It rises in the morning with the light. It shifts through the afternoon. It softens in the evening, and it releases, night after night, into the quiet architecture of sleep. Every night of your life, you have trusted this process. Every morning, it has returned. Tonight is no different. The process knows what it is doing. You are in good hands. Your own. Just notice where you are right now. Still here. Still breathing. We're exploring consciousness itself tonight. The very thing in you doing the listening. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. The placebo effect is one of the most extraordinary demonstrations of consciousness-altering biology. When a person believes they are receiving an effective treatment, even when the treatment contains no active ingredient, measurable physiological changes occur. Pain decreases. Symptoms improve. Brain imaging studies have shown that the expectation of relief activates the same neural pathways as actual relief. The conscious belief literally triggers physical response. What the mind holds as true, the body tends to move toward. This suggests that the way you frame your experience right now, as safe, as restful, as complete, has real effects on your body tonight. Believing you are resting is, in part, how you rest. Certain substances alter consciousness not by adding something to the brain, but by removing the filters. Research on compounds that affect serotonin receptors has revealed something counterintuitive. Rather than activating the brain to produce unusual experience, these compounds appear to reduce activity in certain key hubs, particularly in the default mode network, loosening the ordinary constraints on perception. This finding has led some researchers to propose that ordinary waking consciousness is already a highly constrained, filtered version of possible experience. That the brain spends considerable energy limiting what we perceive, not expanding it. The implication for daily life is quiet but significant. Much of what consciousness does, all day, is hold things in. The shape of your awareness is partly defined by what it keeps out. Sleep may be another way those constraints gently release. There are rare neurological cases in which a person is fully conscious, aware, thinking, feeling, but entirely unable to move or communicate in any conventional way. Individuals who have experienced this condition and later found means of communication have described full, rich inner lives. Thought, emotion, imagination, memory, all present and intact while the body remained still. These accounts offer something important. They remind us that consciousness is fundamentally interior, that its depth and quality do not depend on its expression. You do not need to do anything to be fully present. Right now, lying still and quiet, your consciousness is complete. The stillness is not absence. It is simply consciousness without performance. Aware, unhurried, entirely itself. Scientists have approached the question of what happens to consciousness at the very edge of life with growing care and rigor. Reports from people who were resuscitated after cardiac arrest often include experiences of unusual clarity, a sense of peace, sometimes of perspective from outside the body, sometimes of profound stillness. These accounts are strikingly consistent across cultures and languages. Researchers have examined some of these reports carefully, looking for corroborating details that might be independently verified. The results have been genuinely thought-provoking and genuinely inconclusive. No scientific consensus has emerged, and the methods involved carry significant limitations. What remains is the sincerity of the experiences themselves, and the questions they raise about the relationship between consciousness and the brain. Some questions, held gently, do not need answers tonight. They only need space. Creativity and consciousness share a deep, often surprising relationship. Research on the neuroscience of insight has captured something remarkable. In the moments just before a solution suddenly arrives in conscious awareness, studies have found a brief burst of high-frequency neural activity, particularly in regions associated with loosely connected concepts and distant associations, including areas of the anterior temporal lobe. But even more interesting is what precedes that burst: a period of quiet, of unfocused attention, where the self-referential network is active and the analytical systems are comparatively still. The insight appears to rise from below consciousness, arriving fully formed. This is why creative people often report their best ideas arriving in the shower or just before sleep. The half-awake mind, loose and unhurried, may be one of the most generative states the brain knows. Children's consciousness is not simply a smaller version of adult awareness. It is organized differently. Research in developmental neuroscience has shown that very young children operate with a much wider, less filtered form of attention. Their brains have not yet built the strong predictive models that adult brains use to constrain experience. The world arrives with less filtering, more raw sensation. This may explain the vivid quality of certain childhood memories, the particular quality of light on a summer afternoon, the exact smell of a specific room, held with a clarity that later experience rarely matches. Children are not imagining more. They are filtering less. What we sometimes call wonder may be simply less constraint. The original openness of awareness, before it learned what to ignore, it is still available. In quiet moments like this one, it tends to return. Consciousness, can be briefly interrupted by something as common as a blink. During eye blinks, there is a momentary suppression of visual processing that the brain seamlessly edits out of conscious experience. Similar microlapses in awareness occur throughout the day. Brief gaps that the mind continuously fills without your knowledge or effort. This continuous editing is so thorough and automatic that most people never notice it. What you experience as unbroken, seamless awareness, this steady sense of being present, is the result of extraordinary, constant repair work happening just below the surface. Gaps filled, transitions smoothed, information stitched together into something that feels whole. You are always experiencing a very clean version of reality. The editing happens without your involvement. It always has. The sense of being a unified self, one consistent person experiencing one continuous moment, is, neurologically speaking, a remarkable act of integration. The brain processes different aspects of experience in different regions simultaneously. Color is processed in one area, motion in another, sound in a third, meaning in a fourth. These parallel streams are somehow bound together into a single, coherent moment of experience. This is one of the deep, ongoing questions in consciousness science: how all these separate processes become one felt moment. And yet it happens, moment after moment, seamlessly, without your effort. You wake up in the morning and you are immediately, unmistakably, yourself. The integration succeeds before you even open your eyes. The mystery holds, and so do you. Some of the most effective approaches for supporting mental well-being are now understood to work, in part, by changing the quality of conscious attention. Approaches like mindfulness-based practices share a common thread. They change not just what people think, but how they relate to their thoughts. They shift the observer relationship, creating more space between experience and reaction. Research on these approaches has found measurable changes in brain structure and function over time. The regions associated with rumination become less dominant. The capacity to observe experience without being pulled entirely into it increases. Consciousness can be gently trained, not to become something other than itself, but to hold experience more lightly, more space, less grip, more room to breathe. We are halfway through our 100 facts, and if there is one thread running through everything we have explored so far, it is this: consciousness is not just what happens to you, it is what you bring to what happens. The quality of attention you offer, the emotional tone you carry, the permission you give yourself to soften. These shape the experience you have. Not completely, not always, but more than most of us recognize in the busyness of a day. And right now, the quality you are bringing is stillness, rest, permission. That is a form of consciousness too, one of its quieter, deeper forms. The awareness that knows it does not need to do anything. The mind that can simply be present without grasping. You are already practicing something that matters, simply by being here. Each memory you carry right now, the ones that felt large today, the ones that surfaced unexpectedly, is being gently tended as you rest, not erased, not lost, but softened, integrated, placed where it belongs. Your brain is doing this right now, quietly, faithfully, without your direction. Every night of your life, the mind has tended to itself this way. You don't need to remember anything tonight. You don't need to solve anything. Just breathe out slowly and trust the process that has been here far longer than your worries. We continue. Sleep does not simply restore consciousness. It shapes it. Research has shown that the quality and architecture of sleep influences cognitive flexibility, emotional regulation, and the capacity for insight the following day. People who sleep well demonstrate more nuanced thinking, more accurate emotional reading of others, and greater ability to hold complexity. Sleep is not the absence of consciousness. It is the condition that makes good consciousness possible. The mind you bring to tomorrow is being prepared tonight. You are not waiting for rest. You are already inside it. During sleep, the brain rehearses and consolidates new learning in a process that requires specific sleep stages. Declarative memory, facts, events, consciously learned information appears to consolidate primarily during slow-wave deep sleep. Procedural memory, motor skills, habits, consolidates more during REM. When sleep is cut short, this consolidation is disrupted. Information that seemed learned may feel less accessible the next day. A good night's sleep is not a reward for learning. It is a part of learning itself. What you knew today will be more fully yours tomorrow, because of tonight. The experience of waking from a dream captures one of the most poignant features of consciousness. For a moment, both worlds coexist. The dream still vivid, the room slowly assembling around you. Two realities, briefly simultaneous. The dream one, already fading. The waking one, not yet quite solid. In that threshold moment, consciousness holds two worlds at once, neither fully believed, neither fully dismissed. Scientists call this the hypnopompic state. It lasts only seconds, but in it, the constructed nature of all reality, dream or waking, is briefly visible. You have stood at that threshold thousands of times. Tonight, you will cross it again. The amount of time spent in REM sleep changes dramatically across a lifetime. Newborns spend approximately 50% of their sleep time in REM, a remarkable proportion that gradually decreases across childhood, settling into the adult pattern of roughly 20 to 25%. Researchers believe this high early REM proportion may serve the rapidly developing brain, supporting the integration of new sensory experience, the construction of neural networks, and perhaps the early shaping of a sense of self. Even before we can speak, the dreaming brain is working. Consciousness begins its nightly practice very early and never quite stops. Sleep deprivation is one of the most reliable ways to study what consciousness requires, because removing sleep reveals what it depends on. After one night without sleep, measurable changes appear in the regions associated with judgment and nuanced thinking. Emotional reactivity increases. The capacity to accurately read social cues decreases. After 2 nights, more profound effects emerge. Difficulty distinguishing relevant from irrelevant information. and brief moments where the brain enters sleep-like states for seconds without the person realizing it. The brain, deprived of sleep, inserts its own rest whether or not it is invited. The need for unconsciousness is not negotiable. One of the most counterintuitive findings about sleep and consciousness is that the sleeping brain is not less active than the waking brain. In some measures, certain regions are more active during REM sleep than during quiet wakefulness. The dreaming brain generates experience with remarkable richness, using less external input, but no less internal activity. What changes in sleep is not the level of activity, but the pattern of coordination, which regions are communicating, and in what rhythm. Sleep is not the brain at rest. It is the brain working differently. The factory at night runs a different shift, and that shift is essential. Lucid dreaming, the experience of becoming aware that one is dreaming, while remaining within the dream, offers a rare window into consciousness. In a lucid dream, the dreamer knows they are dreaming. They can sometimes influence the dream's content. All of this occurs while brainwave patterns remain consistent with REM sleep. Research using pre-agreed eye movement signals has confirmed that lucid dreaming is a genuine, distinct state of consciousness, not a brief waking moment, but a recognized category of its own. Awareness within a created world, the observer watching the dream while remaining inside it. A strange loop, a mind observing itself in the act of dreaming. The content of dreams is less random than once believed. Research on dream content has found consistent patterns reflecting waking concerns, relationships, unresolved emotional material, and recent experiences. A phenomenon called the dream lag effect suggests that memories tend to appear in dreams not immediately after an event, but approximately 5 to 7 days later, corresponding with certain memory consolidation timings. Dreams may be the mind's way of returning to significant material, not to resolve it analytically, but to process it in ways that waking thought cannot easily reach. The dreaming mind does not forget what matters. It simply works on it in its own time, in its own language. Consciousness appears to have a preferred direction toward meaning. Research on narrative processing has found that the mind is fundamentally story-seeking. When events are presented in random order, the brain seeks causal connections. When faced with ambiguity, it reaches for interpretation. The hunger for meaning appears to be a feature of the conscious brain itself, not merely a cultural habit. This is why stories are so powerful, and why gentle stories, told slowly in the dark, can quiet the part of the mind that is still searching. They give it what it needs. They say, "Here is the shape of things. You can rest now." Every night, across the world, billions of people do something remarkable without thinking about it. They close their eyes. They lie still. They trust that the awareness they have known all day will find its way back in the morning. They do not know exactly how this works. Neither does science. Not entirely. But it works. Night after night. Across all of human history, the trust required to fall asleep may be the most quietly radical act of faith a conscious being performs. You do it every night. You have never once been wrong to trust it. Consciousness has what researchers call a minimal self. a core of awareness that persists even when narrative thought falls away. In deep meditation, in the quiet, just before sleep, in the dreamless depths of the night, something remains. Some quality of presence that is not thinking, not planning, not remembering, simply being. Neuroscientists have found neural signatures of something like baseline self-awareness, even when the content of consciousness fades. A kind of ground tone beneath all experience. The deepest you is not a story, not a name, not a set of memories. It may be something simpler, the simple fact of presence, before anything else is added. Attention is finite, and how we spend it is one of the most consequential choices of a day. Research consistently shows that the capacity for focused conscious attention depletes across the day. Decision fatigue, cognitive overload, and attention depletion all reflect the same underlying reality. Focused awareness is renewable, but it has limits. Sleep is the primary mechanism through which attentional capacity is restored. Every hour of good rest tonight replenishes the reservoir. Tomorrow's capacity for presence, for careful thought, for genuine connection, is being built right now. Rest is the investment. Tomorrow is the return. The inner voice, the private narration most people carry through the day, is one of the most constant features of waking consciousness. Research suggests that inner speech engages the same neural machinery as outer speech, producing a compressed, rapid form of language that runs almost continuously in most people's minds. It moves faster than spoken words, often arriving as fragments of meaning rather than fully formed sentences. It is the mind's shorthand, efficient, persistent, and remarkably busy. And one of the first things it does as sleep approaches is begin to lose its grammar. The sentences shorten, the logic loosens, the voice grows quiet. That quieting is the beginning of rest. Consciousness is extraordinarily sensitive to small changes in body chemistry. Blood sugar, hydration, cortisol, melatonin, adenosine, serotonin. All of these create measurable changes in the quality of conscious experience. The mind and the body are not separate systems communicating across a gap. They are one continuous chemical environment, in constant conversation. Tonight, melatonin is rising in your brain. Adenosine, the sleep pressure molecule that builds throughout every waking hour, is at its highest point of the day. Your body is asking for rest in the most direct, chemical language it has. It has been asking for several hours now. It is very glad you are finally listening. Halfway through our final stretch of facts, the answer to our question is taking shape. What is consciousness in daily life? It is the thread that runs through everything. Waking and sleeping, remembering and forgetting, thinking and feeling. It is what makes experience, not just information processed, but something it is like, from the inside, to be alive in a particular day, in a particular body, in a particular moment. And tonight, it is doing what it always does when given the chance. It is letting go, slowly, safely, gently, as it has every night of your life. Consciousness may be one of the most private things in existence. Your experience of this moment, the weight of your body, the sound of your breath, the particular quality of this quiet, cannot be fully shared. Another person can be told about it. They can imagine an approximation, but the actual experience exists only for you. Philosophers call this the irreducibly subjective quality of conscious experience. What it is like to see a color, to feel warmth, to hear a voice you love. No instrument currently measures this. No brain scan shows what it feels like to be you. In this room, tonight. That is not a gap in science. It may simply be the nature of consciousness. Interior, singular, entirely your own. People vary considerably in how easily they transition from waking to sleep. And this is partly a matter of consciousness style. Some people have a tendency toward highly active, persistent internal narration, a mind that talks to itself continuously, generates vivid imagery, and finds it difficult to simply not think. Others have a quieter inner experience, more sensory, less verbal, and tend to fall asleep more quickly. Neither is better in life. But in this moment, the quieter style is useful. If you can allow your inner voice to soften, to release the need to narrate this experience, to evaluate it, to remember it, the gap between you and sleep narrows. Let the voice rest. It will still be there tomorrow. Everything it needs to say can wait until morning. The brain appears to revisit the day during sleep. Studies, primarily in animal models, with growing evidence from human research, have found that patterns of neural activity from waking experience are reactivated during slow-wave sleep, often in compressed sequences. It is as though the brain is moving through recent events at speed, selecting what matters, rehearsing what should be remembered. You cannot direct this process. You cannot choose what it keeps and what it releases. But the quality of your sleep shapes how thoroughly it runs. A full, uninterrupted night gives the brain the time to do this work completely. Your sleeping mind is curating your life. Give it the time it needs. The practice of gratitude, deliberately noticing what is good about the present moment, has measurable effects on sleep. Research has found that people who engage in gratitude practices report faster sleep onset, better sleep quality, and more positive pre-sleep cognition. The thoughts they have as they fall asleep tend toward neutral or peaceful rather than anxious. The proposed mechanism involves a shift in cognitive focus, moving attention from what is unresolved toward what is safe, complete, sufficient, right now, in this moment. Something is safe. Something is enough. The fact that you are here, that your body is breathing, that the night is quiet around you, that is already a great deal. The phenomenon of sleep inertia, the groggy, disoriented feeling that occurs immediately after waking, reflects how fully consciousness had withdrawn from its waking mode during the night. During sleep inertia, the prefrontal cortex is still warming up to full function. Executive ability and reaction time remain below waking baseline during this period. This is consciousness returning, not yet fully formed, still assembling itself. The transition from sleep to waking is not a switch. It is a slow morning opening. the mind unfolding, one layer at a time, into itself. It happens every day. It always completes itself. And it begins tonight, with the letting go that you are already practicing. Light is the primary regulator of consciousness across the day. The suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus receives direct input from specialized cells in the retina that are sensitive specifically to short wavelength light, the kind abundant in daylight. This input sets the biological clock, suppresses melatonin in the morning, and gradually allows it to rise in the evening. The discovery of these intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells in the early 2000s transformed our understanding of how light and consciousness are intertwined. Your eyes are not only seeing, they are telling your brain what time it is, what state of consciousness is appropriate, and when to rest. Darkness is not emptiness. It is a signal. It is permission. Consciousness naturally narrows its scope as the night deepens. In the early evening, awareness is broad, encompassing planning, social processing, future thinking. As the chemistry of sleep preparation deepens, the field of awareness contracts. Abstract concerns become harder to maintain. Concrete, immediate sensation becomes more prominent. By the time the threshold of sleep is near, consciousness is typically focused on very close things. The sensation of lying down, the sound of the room, the rhythm of breath. This narrowing is not loss. It is precision. Right now, what is real and near the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet of this room. That is enough. That is everything. The relationship between consciousness and identity is one of the deepest questions sleep raises. If awareness fades for 8 hours and then returns, what provides the thread? Memory, physical continuity, the stable patterns of personality, value, and felt sense of being someone. These persist across the gap in ways that make re-entry seamless. You wake up as yourself without effort. Before you have formed a single thought, you are already you. This persistence suggests you are not your moment-to-moment awareness. You are something that awareness inhabits. Something deeper, more durable, more continuous than any single experience. You were here before this thought. You will be here after it. Consciousness in daily life is not always experienced as continuous awareness. It often arrives in moments particularly vivid, clear instants that carry a quality of full presence. Psychologists have called these peak experiences, flow moments, or moments of clarity. They are marked by a sense of aliveness, the world suddenly sharp, the self suddenly still. Research suggests these moments correlate with a particular kind of neural coherence. Multiple brain regions briefly synchronized in a way that produces a richer, more integrated conscious experience. They cannot be forced, but they can be recognized. Even in a quiet room, lying still in the dark, such moments are possible. This may be one of them. So what is consciousness in daily life? The evidence is clear, and the answer is gentle. Consciousness is not one thing you have. It is a process you participate in, every waking hour, and in different form. Every sleeping hour, it rises with the light and quiets with the dark. It narrows as sleep approaches. It releases, entirely and faithfully, into the body's own wisdom. It has been doing this your entire life. And tonight, as it has done every night before, it is beginning to let go, completely, trustingly, effortlessly, of the day. You are not losing yourself as sleep approaches. You are returning to something older than thought. You may be feeling very soft now. That is right. Sleep does not come when you try. It comes when you stop trying. This is exactly that moment. Your body has been asking for this all day, building the pressure, holding the tiredness. And now, finally, you are here, still, unhurried, open. There is nothing left to do tonight. No thought that needs resolving. No feeling that needs managing. Simply let yourself be carried, the way the mind drifts into sleep every night. Not by effort, but by surrender to something that already knows the way. We are almost there. The body has its own form of intelligence. Long before conscious thought, the nervous system was regulating temperature, managing sensation, coordinating breath, maintaining balance. It still does all of these things, continuously. Without your awareness, consciousness rests on this foundation. And when consciousness withdraws each night, the foundation continues, steady, faithful, entirely capable. You are held even when you are not there to notice. Sleep pressure, the biological drive to sleep, builds with every hour of wakefulness. A compound called adenosine accumulates in the brain throughout the day, binding to receptors and producing the felt experience of tiredness. Sleep clears adenosine, resetting the pressure to zero. By this hour, adenosine has been building for many hours. The chemistry of rest is at its most persuasive. Your biology is asking, gently and insistently, to be heard, and you are listening. The heart rate slows as sleep approaches. This is orchestrated by the parasympathetic nervous system, the system of rest and renewal. As it gently takes over from the alertness of the day, the heart finds its quieter rhythm. Blood pressure softly drops. The body turns inward, tending to maintenance and repair. Every cell is being given what it needs. The whole system quieting together. Muscle tension, often so familiar it becomes invisible, slowly releases as sleep approaches. Chronic stress is held in the body as persistent low-level contraction in the jaw, the shoulders, the hands. This tension is often entirely unconscious. Sleep allows it to dissolve. The body, no longer needed to hold itself alert, releases what it has been carrying all day. You may feel this happening right now. Let it. That is rest arriving. The brain's electrical activity at the threshold of sleep looks like nothing else in waking life. Theta waves, oscillating between 4 and 8 cycles per second, create a state that is neither fully waking nor fully sleeping. A liminal zone. In this zone, the boundary between thought and image becomes porous. A word becomes a picture. A sound becomes a feeling. The mind's usual categories soften. You are approaching that threshold now. Across a full night of sleep, The brain moves through several complete cycles of approximately 90 minutes each. Each cycle moves from lighter to deeper sleep, then rises back toward REM before beginning again. Early cycles contain more deep, slow-wave sleep. Later cycles contain longer periods of dreaming. By morning, the brain will have completed this pattern multiple times, each cycle serving different restorative functions, each one necessary. The night is not a single state. It is an organized, purposeful journey, and it begins the moment you let go. Deep sleep, slow-wave sleep, is the most physically restorative phase of the night. During this phase, growth hormone is released. Cellular repair accelerates. The glymphatic system flushes the brain most actively. The immune system receives support. The body uses this time in ways that wakefulness never allows. You cannot restore yourself awake in the same way you restore yourself asleep. This is what your body is waiting for, right now. The experience of falling asleep is, in most cases, entirely invisible to the person falling asleep. The moment of crossing from wakefulness into sleep, the actual threshold, is rarely experienced consciously. One moment, thoughts are present, then nothing, then morning. The transition is seamless precisely because consciousness, in its final act before sleep, releases its grip on monitoring itself. You cannot watch yourself fall asleep. That watching is what prevents it. The letting go is the falling. Dreams give consciousness a world entirely its own, not the shared world of waking, built from common sensory input and agreed upon facts. The dream world is built from within, from personal imagery, emotional resonance, and the brain's own generative power. It is pure consciousness, without the external constraint of reality, and it belongs to you, waiting just on the other side of sleep, already forming, already becoming the shape of tonight's particular story. Even in sleep, something in consciousness remains oriented towards safety. The sleeping brain does not go deaf. Sounds are processed and evaluated. A child's cry will wake a parent through any depth of sleep. The smell of smoke triggers arousal even from deep rest. The mind does not fully abandon its post. It simply changes what it is watching for. You are safe while you sleep. Something in you knows this. Something is always watching. Across many cultures and throughout history, the sleeping state has been understood as a gateway to something the waking mind cannot access. Ancient traditions sought guidance in dreams. Philosophers found in sleep a mirror of deeper nature. More recently, scientists have found that certain kinds of insight, the kind that arrives whole and clear, emerge disproportionately from the sleeping and waking threshold. Something happens at night that the day cannot provide. This has been known, in different languages, for a very long time. The body temperature drops during sleep, and this drop is not merely a consequence of rest. It is part of what produces it. As the brain prepares for sleep, it begins actively lowering core body temperature by dilating blood vessels in the extremities, releasing heat outward. This is why warm hands and feet are associated with faster sleep onset. The body cooling itself is the body inviting sleep. The slight heaviness you feel right now, the warmth of covers, the settling of limbs, This is the system working exactly as it should. Certain sounds support sleep more reliably than others, and the reason is rooted in how the sleeping brain processes what it hears. Sounds with consistent, steady qualities, gentle rain, soft ambient tones, the low hum of a fan, provide a kind of acoustic blanket that masks irregular environmental sounds before they can trigger arousal. The brain, offered steady rhythm, tends to follow it. A sound like breathing, a sound like rain, a sound like a quiet voice telling you something calm. There is a kind of consciousness that exists just at the edge of sleep. Soft, diffuse, accepting. It does not grab. It does not analyze. It does not plan. It simply receives. A thought drifts through. It is noticed. It fades. Another arrives. It too passes. This is consciousness without attachment. Aware, but not holding. This is one of the most peaceful states the human mind knows. You may be there already. The quality of sleep in the second half of the night is shaped significantly by what happened in the first. REM, sleep, which plays a special role in emotional processing and creative memory integration, is concentrated in the later cycles. Cutting sleep short disproportionately reduces the REM your brain receives. For your daily consciousness, this matters the emotional tone you carry into tomorrow, your capacity for nuanced thinking, your felt sense of being resourced. All of this is being shaped by the depth and length of tonight. Let tonight be a full night. You have time. There is nowhere else to be. The hours of early morning sleep may be the most emotionally important of the night. Research has found that the later sleep hours, rich in REM, play a particular role in processing difficult emotional experiences, reducing their felt intensity while preserving the memory itself. Sleep provides a kind of quiet first aid. It does not erase what happened. It makes it slightly easier to carry. The weight that felt largest at midnight often feels different by morning, not because it changed, but because something in the night tended to it. Consciousness in sleep is not absent. It is transformed. When dreaming, you are conscious. You experience. You feel. You interact with a world that, in the moment, is entirely real. The quality of that consciousness is different, less anchored, less concerned with logic, more open to what the mind generates freely, but the experience is genuine. Sleep is not a void. It is a different room in the same house, and it is already waiting for you. The brain of a sleeping person still responds to its own name. Research has found that stimuli with personal relevance, particularly one's own name, produce measurable neural responses even during sleep. The brain is still listening, not for information, but for signals of personal significance, of safety, of belonging. You remain, even in sleep, someone, a self that the sleeping brain quietly tends to throughout the night. Holding a simple, peaceful intention as sleep arrives may gently influence what the brain attends to during the night. Research on memory reactivation has shown that what is present in awareness near sleep onset can influence subsequent consolidation. What you bring to the threshold, the mind may carry forward. There is no need to hold any thought tightly. But if one arrives naturally, something you are grateful for, something you are looking forward to, something quietly good, let it rest at the edge of your awareness as sleep comes. The mind will tend to it. Consciousness, science is beginning to understand, is not something the brain does for you. It is something the brain is, an emergent property arising from the complexity of neural interaction, not located in any single place, not produced by any single mechanism. And just as it can be calm or aroused, focused or diffuse, it moves across every day and every night, through its full range. Right now, it is moving toward its quietest edge, the place where it releases, where it rests, where it begins again. Sleep scientists have found that the brain, during the final moments of sleep onset, often produces brief, vivid images, arising without intention, without logic, a face you do not recognize, a color without a name, a sound that dissolves before you can place it. They are the mind's own art, generated freely, witnessed without judgment, belonging to no one and nothing. They are the beginning of the dream space, and they are entirely yours. The brain does not need your help to fall asleep. It has been doing this for as long as you have been alive. Before you knew what sleep was, in difficult conditions, in unfamiliar places, the brain has always found its way. What sometimes interferes is not a failure of the system, but consciousness itself, the watcher refusing to stop watching. The only thing asked of you tonight is to step aside. The system knows what to do. There is something consciousness always does. In the end, it releases. Every night, without exception, without failure, consciousness releases its grip on the day, on the thoughts, on the plans, on whatever was left unfinished, and something older takes over. The body's intelligence, the brain's own wisdom, the chemistry of rest. This has happened thousands of times in your life. It is about to happen again. The last thought before sleep is often not remarkable, not a conclusion, not a resolution, not an insight. Often something small, a brief image, a stray word, a half-formed feeling without a name, and then nothing, and then morning. The mind does not need a grand farewell. It simply steps through the door. What is consciousness in daily life? It is this: the awareness that has been with you through every moment of today. That noticed the light this morning. That felt the tiredness accumulate through the afternoon. That brought you here, to this quiet, to this voice, to this particular moment of finally, gently, letting go. It is faithful and patient and entirely yours. And tonight, as it has every night of your life, it is doing the most generous thing it knows how to do. It is getting out of your way, so the rest of you can rest. And so our quiet journey through consciousness comes to its gentle close. We began at the very threshold of awareness. That self-evident, impossible to explain sense of simply being here, right now, in this moment. We traveled through the brain's extraordinary machinery for building experience, the way it filters millions of signals into the handful you actually notice, the way it edits the gaps, the way it constructs the seamless story of a self and carries it through every ordinary moment of a day. We found that consciousness is not a fixed light that is either on or off, but a flame, flickering, variable, responsive, alive, present through waking and sleeping, through thinking and feeling, through every quiet and busy moment of your life. And we followed it here, to this room, to this stillness, to the natural edge where awareness, having done everything it came to do today, begins its faithful dissolution into rest. If consciousness asked one question tonight, it was this: when your awareness returns in the morning, is it the same one that left? Perhaps the returning itself is the answer. The same forces that shape consciousness, integration, rhythm, release, renewal, are the same forces that shape everything that lives. The tide, the breath, the seasons, every living thing participates in this. The rising and the withdrawing, the full engagement and the necessary letting go. You are not separate from this rhythm. You are it. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can. As deep as possible, think about unity, of every moment of awareness you have ever had, every morning light, every felt emotion, every quiet moment of simply being here. All of it, yours. All of it, continuous. All of it, safe. You are not separate from the consciousness that has carried you your whole life. And tonight, let your entire being dissolve into the space before thought, where the question and the answer are the same stillness. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. Someone you know is lying awake tonight with too many thoughts. A gentle tap, a share, a like, a subscribe could bring them here. That small act matters more than it seems. It carries someone else to this quiet, on a night they really need it, one sleepy soul at a time. Whatever you have been turning over today, the half-finished thoughts, the things left unsaid, the small worries that arrived at the edge of sleep, you don't need to carry them one moment longer. They will still be there in the morning. Tonight, you belong only to yourself. You traveled inward tonight, through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the architecture of your own awareness and found it more gentle, more faithful, more generous than it perhaps appeared from the outside of the day. You can allow these thoughts of consciousness to fade now, like the last image of a dream at dawn, present for a moment, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you have carried today is being sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way overnight tending does, not with force, but with quiet intention, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they are closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your consciousness will still be there, still tending, still watching, still waiting to greet you, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer, and remember, your mind is always finding its way back to the light. Good night.